I have ticket stubs. I save all my movie ticket stubs. Even now, where you could go in and do it digitally, I go to the box office, say, give me my ticket stub. I have ticket stubs dating back to the late 80s.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Do you write down anything on there, like what you were doing or when it was or who you went with or?
No. No, it's just you throw them in an envelope and just let them accumulate. And my wife's like, does that bring you joy? Is that something you really should want? I'm like, I've just been doing this forever. I mean, why stop now?
Crazy. I heard, Tara, do you collect anything?
No. As a matter of fact, I kind of like moving because I can get rid of stuff. I was like, oh, this stuff I haven't touched in here. As a matter of fact, we just moved and we lived in our previous house for 10 years. And there was a box that never got opened from our townhouse. So, this is the house before that. So it was my box of CDs. In the 10 years at my last house, we never once opened my box of CDs. And so it's still sealed. It's in our garage now. It's like, what? So it's been, about, at least 11 years since I've, listened to any of those CDs. So maybe I should just get rid of them.
I had a rental warehouse at one point when I was growing up, like I went off to college and I had one of those little rent-a-mini space like they have in Storage Wars. And I was out on the road for a few months because I was working in hotels, and I came back and I found out that my storage unit had been sold. For some reason, I'd set up automatic payment or something, and I couldn't make it work. And I'm like, at first I was really frustrated, and they're like, can you make a list of the stuff that you lost and we'll reimburse you? And all I could remember was a set of Christmas plates that I'd gotten from a garage sale. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe I don't need so much stuff. Maybe I don't need to have a storage unit. And so ever since then, that's been like my defining border. I'm like, I will not put anything in storage because if I don't need it, screw it. What's the point of it?
Yeah, I can't.
I say that, but
collect. Mike collects stuff. He collected guitar magazines and things like that, but he's slowly gotten opened them up and gotten the things out of it that he wants, saved those, and then recycled the rest of the magazine. Like the whatever it is, they have songs in there.
Does he play guitar?
He has guitars. I all the years I've been with him, I don't think I've ever seen him touch. I think he's touched the guitar one time since we've been together. He used to play. Life.
It's true. It's true. And then you envision yourself as the guitarist. You never want to let go of that thing because that kind of defines who you are. I see these people on these tiny house shows. He does. He looks like a band. Yeah.
My daughter's taking guitar lessons right now, so she just started.
So, and of course, did you start her with an acoustic or an electric?
Acoustic, and she's learning classical. So whatever that means.
Oh, wow. Oh, that could be kind of cool. That could be nice and soothing.
So no chords, and they're not here now, but usually I'll hear her, somewhere around 1 or 2 o'clock, because that's about time she gets done with her schoolwork, and dring, 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 and it just miss hit, just her working it out, and unlike piano where we had to continually tell her, did you practice? I don't have to tell her with guitar. She just picks it up and goes. So then we may have found the instrument that she clicks with. We'll see.
I want to see. I would have clicked, I think, more with a guitar because you could play it in private. You could go in your room and go do it. Whereas my mom was a piano teacher, and she's like, sit in here while I'm making dinner. Practice for an hour. And I'm like, screw you. I suck. I'm tired of Whereas she could just go whip into Mozart or whatever. Well, let's see. We might as well get started. Y'all can go ahead and send in your technical questions there in the Q&A panel and go to webinar, and we'll work through them first come, first serve.
Or your favorite movies. We'll take either.
Yeah, or your favorite movies. The movies that you could rewatch, not just your favorites, because I have favorites like Heathers, but I'm never rewatching Heathers again.
That's different than rewatch. I'd have to add Groundhog Day to the list because I've watched that 20 times probably. That's something you can watch all the time.
Life lessons. And it's on every year on cable.
Right.
Michael Pierce says Joe Dirt. I would like to know more about the kind of
later
that would choose that. That's kind of cool. I respect that. I think I would want to hang out with you. Yeah, I just don't want to watch that movie with you.
Yeah.
I just went total flame mode. Joe Dirt, what? Flame on!
Philip says better off dead. That's not bad. Thomas says, I've started my journey to the dark side. I got an iPad. When my Surface 3 Pro dies, or Surface Pro 3 dies, I'll probably do a MacBook Pro. Let me tell you something here. Hold on. Don't do that. As a Mac user, as the only remaining Mac user in this company other than my wife, do not do that. The switching is a giant pain in the rear. Windows is awesome. Like all your keyboard shortcuts, you'll hate yourself. The Mac hardware is overpriced. I love Macs because I've been using it since Windows Vista. I still try to switch back to Windows because it's okay. It's not great.
I saw a video this weekend of a guy who tried to upgrade his iMac, his brand new iMac, from 8 gig to 32 gig, and he did it himself using iFixit website.
Yeah.
But it took him 4 hours. I mean, he's undoing glue. He's doing all this stuff. I'm like, nope. $200 to the Apple Store, please. Thank you. Do it for me.
Yeah. Steve for a movie says The Blob with Steve McQueen. You know, if I was going to pick a Steve McQueen movie, I don't think that would have been it.
Maybe Bullet, but thanks.
Yeah, Le Mans. Good. But points for the Steve McQueen reference. That's good. Tishal says, hi, guys. I have a 2 terabyte database, and I have auto growth set to 4 gigs. The number of VLFs is always above 1,000 VLFs. I think I'm supposed to keep it under 300. Is there some way that I should, or should I keep it under 300? And how do I keep it under 300 VLFs?
I mean, where did that 300 number come from? Because so 2 terabyte database, what's the size of the log file, and what size is it growing to? So I've had some log files that were like, say 300 gigabytes or higher, and I can get the VLFs down to say 200 to 300, but that's just just picking a number. I mean, so shrinking it down all the way and then growing it back out in like 4 gigabytes or even 10,000 gigabyte, 10,000 megabyte chunks. But if it's growing back, it's obviously auto growing since you're going from 300, you're fixing it and then going back to 1,000. So what is going on there? So someone must be shrinking it for it to be, you're having this battle.
It says it always grows back to a terabyte after shrinking. Or no, it always grows back to 1,000 VLFs, I guess is what he's saying.
Yeah.
No, I think you're right.
After you fix the VLF issue, you're supposed to auto grow it back out to the original size. I think maybe that step is being missed. So shrink it all the way down to 5 megabytes or 1 megabyte. So do this in the maintenance window, because if you have a 2 terabyte database, you probably going to need some transaction log space. So shrink it all the way down as far as you can, literally like 5 megabytes. And then you grow it back out to the original size. Don't just let it auto grow from there. You have to auto grow it back out and pick, some numbers such as say 5,000 megabytes to do the manual. You're going to be doing manual growth back out and keep going until you reach your original file size. And so I think that you're missing a step here. I don't think you're manually auto growing it back out.
And you could grow in giant increments if you want. 20 gigs.
Aren't there performance issues with that? Because you then have some large VLFs, and that's and so in order to clear those out, it takes longer to clear those out. Because you have to clear out a VLF at a time, right? When the truncation process happens, it's a VLF at a time. And
the growing's going to take a hell of a long time too at 20 gigs a pop. I'm with Tara too, and where did the 300 number come from? Our general number is, I think we alert you at 1,000 VLFs in SP Blitz, and that's only just to warn you so that before the thing gets to 5 or 10,000 that you change tax. But I'm kind of okay with 1,000 VLFs. I don't have a problem with that.
Did you see the Stack Exchange question from last week? There was somebody, so they were on their 3rd restart, that the crash recovery is taking over 36 hours. And so I'm not sure why so the first 2 times it happened, it took over 36 hours. And they must not have investigated, because here they are on their 3rd time. I assume Microsoft patching or something that's caused them to do a restart of the box. Why, after the first time, did they start troubleshooting this? Because they weren't even sure what the VLFs were on this 3rd time while they're waiting 36 hours for this database to come online. And they follow up to say even copying files around, they were getting like 1 megabyte per second or something. It was something crazy like that. They're like, something's going on with this box. I checked on it like a couple days later and I didn't see an update. I was hoping to see what happened with it.
Yeah, like how many hours did it pass before they finally got the thing up to speed? Oh, it's brutal. I remember there was one data warehouse, and when I was in Miami, a data warehouse in Miami, that after 72 hours, they came to me. I wasn't the employee. I was just there as a consultant at the time. After 72 hours, they came to me, and they're like, do you know a way to see how far along a restart is? And I'm like, no, why? Let's see what. 72 hours.
Oh, man. Well, I mean,
like,
you can kind of gauge it in the error log because it goes through 3 phases, and it does give you percentages in those phases. But yeah, I mean, at least you know what phase you're in. Are you still in phase 1 after 72 hours?
I'm like, what are you doing? What is this? Is this? Well, it's just a QA box. We're not really, like, just delete it. Just delete the databases and start over. Francisco asks, where do you recommend for a support community like you guys for an SSAS tabular performance support? I want to learn how to decipher query plans related to DAX and the VertiPack engine.
Lots of words. I don't even know what they mean.
Well,
I don't feel bad.
Yeah, no, I think that
I don't know.
Yeah, it had that HP sounding name when they came out. Anything that ended with a Q. Our poor transcriptionist, VertiPack is VertiPAQ. So the problem is, like, if you take a percentage base, how many percentage of people are using the SQL Server engine, and then what percentage of those are using analysis services, and then what percentage of those are using, say, tabular or what DAX or whatever. It's such a small percentage. It's not that it's a bad product. It's just totally fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just that not only are there so few people using it, there's like 3 guys tuning it, and then they don't end up doing any community work because they're just overwhelmed with tuning it. So your choices are either go to work for Microsoft, talk to Chris Webb, W-E-B-B, and I say talk to, but like he does training classes over in Europe. I don't think he does online ones yet, but he does that kind of performance tuning work. The other one is Bob Duffy out of Ireland. It's prodata.ie. But all of these are just, they blog once or twice a year, but the rest of the time they're doing their private training classes. You'd have to go to a class.
Just like Richie and me.
Yes.
Once a year.
Got better things to do. Come on now.
You know how many bugs Brent, puts into my product? I mean, really, that's a full-time job.
It's embarrassing how bad my code, like I felt bad. I was talking to Erica about this yesterday. So I check in fixes to our internal stuff into Constant Care now that y'all can see Constant Care. And I give Richie code and I'm like, yeah, this is ready to go. I'm pointing to fields that don't exist. Fields that don't even exist. I'm like, yeah, no, ship it, Richie. It's cool. It was embarrassing. And then at least Richie has the incredible foresight and sense to build automated builds. So as my code gets checked in, you can smell the smoke and how bad everything is broken.
See, I break stuff way more than Brent does, but nobody's looking, really, right? So it's a little different when Brent checks stuff in and I'm looking at it like, oh, dude, come on. That field doesn't exist, man. I mean,
yeah. He's like, hey, are you looking for is disabled? I'm like, yeah, it's exactly what oh. Daryl says, Daryl asked a good question. He says, I've continuously improved the shop I entered 4 years ago. I'm the only DBA supporting 44 servers and 185 databases. I'm heads down all day supporting my developers, projects, day-to-day database support. I've been in IT for about 3 decades, 2 decades Oracle, 4 years SQL Server. No one knows what I do, but the C-level is still convinced that I don't know what I'm doing. Is it time for me to leave? Should I do in-house presentations on what I've done and how it's impacted the environment? Oh, what would you guys do in that? Tara's expression.
I just don't know. I mean, if the C-level people don't know what you're doing or that you're doing a good job, I couldn't stay there. I mean, that means I'm being passed up for raises and bonuses, and I'm just stuck. I'm basically stuck in my career there, and it just, unless there's something else keeping you there, like benefits or maybe your starting salary was fine and you're okay with that. But yeah, I couldn't live in that. I could not work in that environment.
Yeah, it would be extremely hard to communicate to the executive team about what you do and why you're important. I mean, because they already think that you're not doing a good enough job as it is for whatever you do, and then explaining it to them something is pretty technical, and they don't sound like technical people. That's an uphill battle as it is. It's a lot easier just to hey, what else is out there? And I could probably get paid more while I'm doing it. Sounds like something that you need to look into.
And, and one way to know if you really are doing a good job is looking for another job and seeing what kind of jobs you can get, because maybe you aren't as good as you think. I mean, it's possible, when you've been in the job for a long time, you're not exposed to newer stuff, and it's hard to keep up when you're stuck in a certain job for a lot of years.
A great example of that, a friend of mine went through the MCM program and had been working at the same shop for 10 years, but just with the same server continuously and over again for the same 10 years. Had built that server themselves, knew exactly how it was configured, never got into really strange scenarios, and was totally, just blown over by the MCM exam and how hard it was. Like, there's all these different features. I'm like, yeah, it's, that's what we work with. That's how this thing goes. People use crazy stuff. I would say too, if I'm in your shoes, you just you ask, am I happy here enough to the point where I can keep cashing this check and I'm ready to retire in so many years? I don't know what your retirement situation looks like if you've been doing, you said IT for 30 years. And who knows, maybe you found what you love and this is the exact perfect niche and you're like, okay, well, people will never know what I do. You just want to make sure you don't get laid off.
That would be my concern.
Yeah, sell them a little better so that they don't replace you with someone with 2 years of experience who wants $50,000 a year. But always put your Richie gets heartburn. But I would totally, put your resume together, have it out on LinkedIn, and send it to a couple of recruiters in town. Assuming in town if you didn't want to move, because remote work is almost impossible, despite how easy we make it look. But just so that way you'll be entertained. The time to look is when you have a job. Yeah. The time to look is when you're already comfortable and you go, well, I have a parachute here, and you can pick and choose and be comfortable and flexible.
What was that site again?
SQLskills.com.
I just got a job posting from a recruiter yesterday for a local healthcare system, and some of the bullet points in there is like, must know Linux and Hadoop. I was like, I think this went to the wrong person.
I like how somebody was tweeting yesterday. They said, Java is to JavaScript as ham is to hamster, because they're not related. Kyle asks, any suggestions for sites which provide practice exams for certified 2016 database administration tests? Boy, are we the wrong on this one. So it's been a while since we talked about certification. So we'll go across the screen. Tara, if I say, should you get a certification test or not? What's your answer there?
I have exactly 0 certifications. And this is because I've taken practice tests many years ago. I mean, many, many years ago. And I did so poorly on them. I was like, why bother with these? I'm already doing a good job. But, at that job, I was considered a rock star, doing really well there. It's like, I just don't need to be certified. Why spend, and that company would have paid for, I forget how many failures. If I had failed a test, they would have paid for some of them. And I could have taken time off to go take care of that, and they would have paid for that. But I had no interest in it really. That one practice exam, I was like, yep, I remember. I'm not a good test taker. And the questions are so dumb anyway. I mean, the answer isn't the answer. The test answer might be different than what we do in the real world. And so I'm answering real world, answers, and that's not what the test is looking for.
Mm-hmm. Richie, how about you?
Yeah, for some reason, when I took the SQL development exam, I think it was 2008, like the answer was always XML data type. And in reality, the answer is never the XML data type. It's never it. I way back in the day, because I think I took my first exam back in 97. And I think I just graduated college and I just jumped right into one of the exams and passed it. I was using the Transcender practice tests, but I haven't seen them in a billion years. So I don't even know if they're still around yet or whatnot. But what I would do is they would come with 3 practice tests. I would take one, study the stuff I missed, take another one, study the stuff I missed, and then take the last one, and then go take the exam. I never passed the Transcender exam, but I never failed a Microsoft exam. So they were good tests. They were good, but I haven't felt the need or even a desire to take a certification test in about a decade. It's just one of those things where it doesn't matter as much as it did, back 20 years ago. 20 years ago, it would get you in the door. Nowadays, it's just a blurb that kind of people just kind of skim over. It doesn't really buy you too much.
Ronnie, I'm going to have you, because Ronnie asked a question, I'm going to have you flesh out your question more while I talk about Kyle's follow-up. Ronnie, you said, can you recommend a free tool for query documentation, or do you just create your own templates? Talk more about the kind of output that you're looking for. You're talking about comments, or you're talking about visual diagrams, or what do you mean by query documentation? Sounds like a classic DBA answer. What do you mean documentation?
Documentation and template, like I'm out.
Kyle asked a follow-up. He said, it's now a requirement for us to get the certifications in order to stay in good maintenance with one of our vendors.
Yikes.
I'm going to give the most politically incorrect answer that will surely get me in trouble when this transcript goes live. But here we go. If you don't care about the certification, and if it's just to make someone else happy and you already have a job and you're not worried about like whether or not you prove you know something, Google for the test number and brain dumps and BitTorrent. You can go get torrents of the exact questions and answers that are used on exams, because what happens is in less scrupulous areas, people will go take the exam and immediately go out and write down or type out everything that was on the exam. And so there's lots of countries where it's an accepted practice to exchange that stuff for free. Now, that's dirty in the sense that Microsoft's going to get angry at me for saying that. Bad man. But I have so little faith in the Microsoft exams. They're not worth the paper that they're printed on to begin with. They don't show what people actually do for a living. That's the same reason we didn't ask for certs when we go and hire people. They're totally irrelevant. So if you just have to check an irrelevant box, then cheat, which is a horrible thing to say, and there it is.
And I'm so passive aggressive that even if it's a requirement at my company, I would still not do it until they, until they force my hand. You either leave or you get certified. And I may choose to leave because it's not something I'm interested in.
It's horrible. We had at one point, we were a Microsoft Gold certified partner because we wanted to go down the road and see what it was like. And they had requirements for you had to have a certain number of certified staff. And so a bunch of us went and took the test, and we were all pissed because they were BS. And I want to say both Doug and Jess were struggling with the BI tests, and they know more about BI than most people I know.
Wow.
And so we were like, all right, when it came time to renew, we just canceled the gold partner thing because we're like, it's just meaningless. Now, I'm not saying the gold partner thing is meaningless. It's not if you're into that kind of thing, but it just didn't make any difference for us.
And it's pretty rare that our clients ask if we're, gold partners or not. I think I've seen like one email in the 2 years that I've been here. It's like, no.
No. And I think some of it is probably word of mouth. Like some gold partners only want to work with other gold partners. So it can help you get a consulting job at certain kinds of consulting companies if you want it. But I'm so biased against doing that just to get to a specific company. I'd rather you go to someone in your network that you actually want to work with. And then usually when there's someone who knows you, knows the work that you do, and wants to hire you, they'll bend the rules to get you in. They'll make that happen. But Richie looks like he wants to say something there.
No, I'm fine. Cheat away.
Having said all that, I mean, the MCM program was a great certification. That really did prove who was experts. For the most part, I suspect. I'm sure that some people slipped through.
Well, it was weird how it worked, and I'll talk about this now too because it's been so long. But the first test was the final test. There were 3 written tests. They were all hard as hell. The 3 written tests. You got 1 a week for the 3. Then the final lab exam was 6 hours in a lab, and you didn't get a list of questions. You got a couple of sheets of paper, like double spaced, with big long brain dumps from the client of here's everything that has been going on at the client, and you had to figure out what you were supposed to do. There was no question 3 mark C or something like that. It was pretty bizarre.
I don't think I could have done that. So you weren't on a computer to test things out. You were just on paper with a scenario.
No, you had like 3 VMs and you had
okay.
work. but you only had those 3. There was no dev environment. It was just go. And there were maybe 20 things that you had to accomplish once you wrote down, all right, here's everything I think they're asking, and they would all break each other. So it was, it was a very do it live fun scenario. You'd have done fine. I really think that it was the best experience I've ever seen for judging someone who's worked around databases for 10 years. If you've worked around databases for 10 years, you can smell what's kind of broken and click around. I'd never really worked with replication before, but there was a replication problem and I solved it because I was like, all right, well, let me figure this out. How hard can it be?
When I first looked into it, it was when it was still the $10,000 to get through the whole thing. I know that the price dropped at one point.
Yeah.
20,000. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So that just wasn't happening.
Yeah, I was following Brent's blog post on that like crazy because I couldn't figure out why somebody would spend 20 grand in 3 weeks of their time. And I'm trying, well, what is going on here, Brent?
Yeah.
Yes. I did that back when I worked for Quest, and I had the same reaction when they came to me. They're like, we have this MCM program. Do you want to be it? I'm like, I don't know. What's involved? Oh, it costs about $20,000 in 3 weeks. No.
Oh, did they cover it?
Yeah, they picked up the whole thing. But if I left within, I can't remember, it was a year or 2 years, I had to pay the whole thing back. And I did. And so that was a check where I was like, I really like this MCM. Daryl said, was Googling disallowed during the exam? No, it was open internet. You had whole open internet. You could bring your scripts in. And it had like a 70-80% fail rate. So it tells you. Ronnie follows up with, I'm just, for the query documentation, he says, I'm at the least just looking to create notes within the query. At best, something that can output database information into some kind of document.
Still don't understand the question, really.
There is no self-documenting code. There is no self-documenting app. Richie, what app are you using to generate the 400, 500 pages of documentation that you've cranked out here?
These right here.
Oh, these fingers. Yes.
These tools.
Those of you on the audio podcast, you can't see Richie's fingers. They're all painted in different colors.
They are.
He does this actually on company time too.
You can't tell, but I've broken every one of my fingers at least once.
How have you broken every one of your fingers?
Dude, I used to play basketball, man. I mean, either sprained or broken. And what used to happen is that, you get a finger that's popped, you just take some tape and you just run back out there. Or you tape 2 fingers together, whatever that is, but you just don't stop playing. I mean, that's not an option. You keep going.
You like basketball way more than Tara and I like basketball.
Yeah.
Katie says, we're trying for certificates so that the guys we work with will have faith in our answers.
Ooh,
Katie, no. I apologize. That's horrible. I am sorry that you have to go through that. Whoever you're working with is a pig. That's ridiculous. It should be the other way around, like that no one should respect anybody. I'm going to get myself in so much trouble. The people who have to get certificates to be treated fairly, it's just not fair. That's just not right. It's bogus. But she has a smiley face in her answer, but that's just crap.
I mean, is this one of the things where maybe integration testing would help out, right? So you actually create tests that will load a certain amount of data to a database, and then you run the query up against it, and then it comes back with the set answer, which you verify it's the same. And you run all these different tests up against all your queries, and hey, look, it works because we have tested tests, and every time we do a deployment or whatever, once a day, we run all these tests, and they all worked exactly the same way, and then it's repeatable.
When you started that, I thought you were referring to Katie's question, and I was like, how does that have anything to do with gender and believing in your
Oh, yeah.
Sri asks, does SQL Server Agent pause processing when it's failing back or failing over?
Nope. It's just like all your connections. Everything gets severed.
Bombed. Yep. It pauses in the sense that it stops working, and then it starts working again when it starts over on the other node.
Everything gets killed, rolled back, rolled forward, whatever.
Yeah. Daryl says, thank you, you guys rock. Well, you're welcome. And with that, we are at the end of this office hours. Thanks, everybody, for the questions, and we will see y'all next week. Adios.
Bye.